Hi, good afternoon. I think I might have been muted just a second ago, so if you didn't hear me, I'm going to do a brief intro again. We are excited to welcome Dr. Kumar Sarangi with us, who is our faculty director on our Productizing Innovation Certificate Program that we offer here out of the Silicon Valley Executive Center at Santa Clara University. We've put this webinar together in hopes that anybody that might be interested in the program could really get a sense, sort of a sneak peek of some of the content that they could expect to learn from the program. There's been tons of interest that has come our way and many questions about what it is specifically that our program covers. And so we wanted to put this webinar together to give you all a sense of what that is. And we anticipate that we'll do a few more of these. Our next certificate program starts on September 7th. And so we wanted to make sure we got this webinar out of the way for anybody that might be interested. But again, we're going to be talking today about high-tech product strategy and innovation. So we're excited to do that. Before I get started, I wanted to just clarify a couple of things logistically. So we're going to have everybody on mute. However, we're going to be collecting questions as we carve through the webinar. And so we ask that you submit those questions via the chat function that the Zoom link that you're a part of provides you. And then as we complete each part of the webinar, and there are two parts to this webinar, we'll open it up for Q&A and we'll get to as many questions as we possibly can. Additionally, we're going to follow up with an email tomorrow for anybody that might be interested in the program or just wants to give general feedback on this particular webinar. My name is Dennis Lanham. I'm the executive director of the Silicon Valley Executive Center here at Santa Clara University. And I'd like to go ahead and just introduce our speaker for today. Again, Dr. Kumar Sarangi. He is a PhD from the University of Illinois Champaign. And he is a resident expert and has strong research expertise in product line innovation, new product development, and entrepreneurship. In addition to that, Kumar is a good friend of mine, and one thing that I think that we share, which as we were designing this program together really came through in the program design, is that Kumar is a double MBA, and I'm also an MBA. So we recognize that anything that we put together from a content standpoint in all of our program designs, it has to have real-time practical relevancy for practicing professionals like yourself. And so I think you'll see that in a lot of the content that he'll cover today. Again, he is our faculty director on the Productizing Innovation program, and he brings a lot of industry experience to the table with a blend of research theory and real-time relevance. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kumar to do any more introduction about himself that he'd like, and then to dive right into part one of our webinar.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Greatly appreciate your kind introduction. I'm so happy to be here to talk to a nice crowd on my favorite topic, that is new product innovation. And so today, we're going to dive into innovation. I'm going to share some important truths about innovation and how operating in an area like Silicon Valley really catalyzes this whole process. And I'm going to share with you some current realities of product management and my own view of where it's going to evolve in the near future, and what should you do in order to be a successful innovation. And in the process, I'm going to share with you my best practices and how you can think about the process of innovation. Okay. So Dennis, could you show the next?
So we're going to break the webinar in two parts. We have part one, which is going to cover innovation and dealing with uncertainty. As everybody knows, anytime that companies and individuals are innovating, especially internally with corporate innovation, there's tons of uncertainty that you're up against, right? And so Kumar is going to talk a little bit about that and give you a frame of reference for that environmental context. We're also going to talk about what are some of the current realities of product management and product marketers. So I think things have changed a lot over the last many years, and so we've captured some information there that we'll discuss. And then finally, for part one, we'll talk about what a successful innovator looks like. And so that'll cover part one. For part two, we'll briefly talk about how we assess innovation opportunities. Many times there's tons of opportunities that offer themselves up inside of organizations, and it can be a little difficult to determine which innovations should be sought after and invested in. And so Kumar is going to give you an example of one frame of reference that you can use in that process as an example of one of the tools that we built into this particular program. And then also metrics, how to utilize metrics in innovation. That'll be part two. And then we'll turn it over for the second Q&A. So with that, we'll go ahead and dive right in.
Okay, so as Dennis pointed out, I am what you would call an academicianer. I like bring an academic point of view, but with a practitioner mindset. I'm going to start off by highlighting three important truths about new product innovation. Which many of you might be knowing, but it is important for us to be cognizant of. The first is new product innovation is extremely crucial and beneficial for the long-term performance of firms. And let me bring some research to the table. We have found out that those firms who excel in innovation have more than twice their profits and sales coming from new products launched in the last 3 years than companies who don't do well. Okay, so in layman language, you're bound to succeed if you bring in more successful new products to the market. Okay, however, new product development is extremely costly and extremely difficult, and lastly, has an incredibly high failure rate. In fact, the failure rate of new products is the same as the divorce rate in the US. Okay, one in two new products fail. In some industries, actually, it's more than 60%. Okay, sounds like fun. Well, it's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of uncertainty involved. And this whole process is catalyzed by the context you're operating, which in our case is a very high-tech dynamic environment, okay, called Silicon Valley. The interesting dynamics about Silicon Valley is there are various sources of uncertainty which is in interplay at the exact same time, okay? And I'm going to focus upon three types of uncertainty. The first is market uncertainty, the second is technological uncertainty, and that is exacerbated by competitive volatility. Okay, so what is market uncertainty? It's essentially we are ambiguous about customer needs. Okay, if you first of all, needs change at a velocity much faster than any other environment around us. Okay, so we really don't know which needs we should optimize on. We don't know what the pace of adoption is going to be, and consequently, forecasting becomes a nightmare. I mean, I don't know about you guys, folks, but I've always been very stressed out whenever I have to forecast because of this entire issue of need velocity. Okay, so requirements keep on changing. It's a moving target. Salespeople will give you some specifications. Engineers will have their own specifications. So it becomes a nightmare in order to predict this uncertainty. The next uncertainty is something which is slightly more internal. Okay, which is your technological uncertainty. And that is this whole notion of, hey, we know the needs now, we can make some educated estimate about the needs. We have some idea about the technology which can address these needs. However, what we are not sure about is, will this technology deliver on the promise? Okay, because technology, my dear friends, as you know, is large-scale investment of billions of dollars. You do not want to sub-optimize on a bad technology. Okay, so you don't know whether the innovation or the technology will function, but in a place like Silicon Valley, if you do that mistake, someone else, either a small company, a medium-sized company, or a big company, can essentially leapfrog you and make $1 billion investment obsolescent. Okay, so you could be obsolete really fast. Okay, and then you factor in disruption, in which a technology which does not appear alluring right now to the mass market swings in, and that becomes a mass market in the future. Okay, and that caters to a current needy market whose need you are not satisfying. So think about all these levels of uncertainty. And finally, competition. A lot of companies, a lot of offerings, okay, a lot of strategies, a lot of tactics at the exact same time aimed at the exact same market. Okay, so there is uncertainty about who is my current competitor, where is the future competition going to be? Are they going to change the rules of the game? Is there going to be disruption? Okay, or is there going to be a complete new business model which I never thought about? Okay, and that can lead to a lot of creative destruction and disruption. Okay, so in a way, what I'm trying to do here for you guys is saying, what are the challenges facing innovation, especially if you want to succeed in it? So now, what have we done? What has the current product management world done as to challenge these, overcome these challenges? These are the things which I feel have come up. Okay, the pace of building products is much faster because cycle time is a key success factor in Silicon Valley. Okay, if you take Agile, okay, 2 to 4 weeks. Okay, it is done into for sprints of 2 to 4 weeks. Very frequent iteration, a lot of quick experimentation, which is why designers work really closely with developers and product managers. And the whole purpose of Agile is to get very quick feedback on multiple iterations because you cannot wait a long time, just like in waterfall. Okay, why? Because, like I said, all the uncertainties will be even more pronounced if you last a long period of time. And finally, execution becomes extremely important, which is what has fueled the rise of DevOps. Okay, you have to learn how to execute, otherwise, whatever strategies and tactics you have envisioned is going to be badly implemented. Okay, so I get asked this question a lot. What do you predict are going to be important trends in this whole productization process? You know, I feel that there are 3 or 4 Ds you have to keep in mind. Okay, design, digitization, and data. Okay, design is going to be important. Okay, one of the questions you can ask me is why do you think these are very important? I guess all of you are as obsessed with cell phones as I am. Okay, I see almost everything with cell phones, and the world belongs to millennials. So their hands are glued to their cell phones. So essentially, you have a very small space within your cell phone in which you can create an impact on these customers. Okay, so your design has to be spot on. The user interface has to be really easy. It has to be really colorful, and content becomes really important because you want to get the most bang for the buck. Okay, for whatever content you want to show them. Okay, so you have to learn to get more out of less. So the quality of content becomes really important. Okay, everything is digital. Product marketing is going to become a mix of digital marketing and content marketing. Okay, and but I would like to emphasize here that old-fashioned sales is still going to remain. And finally, data. Okay, it is extremely easy to collect data, and you have to have a lot of quantitative skills in order to be able to analyze this data and make sense. In fact, there was a large survey of 1,200 product managers done by one of the academic organizations I'm a part of. And they found that product managers, by their own confession, feel they need to learn more about data and what to do with data. And they feel they're not analytical enough, and that's an area they want to emphasize. Okay? So I hope this is clear in terms of what are the issues, what are the problems, what are the current realities. Now, who succeeds in this milieu? Like who are the people who succeed? Okay, to be successful in innovation, you need 5 or 6 elements which are blended in really well. Okay, which are extremely compatible, extremely coherent with each other. Okay, the first is a culture. Innovative culture. A great example of a company would be IDEO. Okay, they have succeeded in innovation for a bunch of years because of their innovative culture. Okay, you need to have the appropriate and the most optimal innovation strategy. Okay, so which markets are you going to go after? What technologies are you going to bring? Are you going to have a platform-centric approach or not? Okay, what percentage of new products do you want? What percentage of sales and revenues within a year do you want coming out of new products? So these have to be spelled out with great clarity and great coherence and communicated well enough to the rest of the organization. Okay, you need to also have very effective new product processes. Okay, what do we mean by that? You need to have strong ideation processes, strong evaluation processes, strong product definition processes, design processes, and a lot of product marketing processes. Okay, you need to have a strong branding strategy. Finally, okay, you can have all of these, but unless you actually commit resources and leverage your own capabilities by having the right values, the right resources, you cannot succeed. So keep in mind that all of these have to work hand in hand, hand in glove, in order for you to succeed in innovation. Okay, at this point, I want to take questions.
So for those of you that joined the webinar after we did the initial introduction, what we requested is that if you had any questions as we went through each part of the webinar, that you submit those via the chat function. So now is the time. If you have any questions about anything that Kumar has covered to this point, just go ahead and find that chat function in the Zoom platform and just submit those questions to us, and we will then try to get to as many questions as we possibly can. So Kumar, one question for you is, why is understanding innovation process and strategy here in the Silicon Valley important to know for businesses outside of the Valley and other parts of the U.S. and the world?
So what should people outside the Valley know about us?
Well, I think the question is just, why is it important to know how Silicon Valley innovates? Why is it important to know the secret sauce, and what can be learned from the Valley that can be applied outside of the Valley?
Well, to me, the world is going to evolve to software. Okay, and we are sitting in the hub of software. And in software, when you take software development, pace becomes really important. So you have to have short cycle time, but at the same time, not compromise on quality. Okay, and cost also becomes an issue, and that's what Silicon Valley has been doing well, is bringing the right software, high quality software at the highest speed possible. Okay, and so let's say I'm from Illinois. If I'm sitting in Illinois or in Chicago, I'm looking at Silicon Valley as providing a template by which I can innovate quick without compromising on quality. Okay, and so if you see Agile, DevOps, and all, we have been the ones who are revolutionizing. Okay, and I feel other areas outside Silicon Valley would be well served to keep us as a benchmark.
Fantastic. Let's see, we have another question here. You were talking about culture, innovation culture. And the question is, in thinking about how to create an innovative culture inside of an organization, what are maybe the top 2 or 3 things that people or companies should keep in mind, or leaders should keep in mind?
You know, we have been doing a lot of workshops with companies, and a lot of companies have realized that you cannot operate in silos if you want to excel in innovation. Okay, so you need to have the right culture in which the mindset is important. Okay, so for example, if you innovate, you're going to fail. Everything you do is not going to hit the bullseye the first time. Okay, so you need to have a culture of, let's say, failure tolerance. Okay, are you willing to experiment? Are you willing to fail? Okay, unless these are things which are well ingrained in the DNA of an organization, it becomes a problem. Okay, so we do a lot of workshops with many organizations in which we bring them, and then we put them through a workshop of, say, 3 days, in which we make them innovate. We hand them a problem, or they have a problem, and then they utilize things we have taught them in order to bring something really fast. And one of the things which I've always heard is, I wish I can do this more often, and the culture permitted this so that I can be more successful. Okay, so this validates this whole notion of culture.
And that brings to mind just a question that I actually have is, what are some of those barriers that leaders, senior leaders specifically in the product management space, are up against when they're trying to implement these innovations or create a culture of innovation?
Well, one of the things I've seen, if I have to highlight some of the main things, one of them is cultural inertia. If it ain't broke, I don't fix it. You know, I'm getting stuff coming. Why the hell should I change? You know, the whole mindset, have something new. The other is fear of failure. Okay, the other is fear of failure.
Great. We have, I think we have one more question that just came in. Given the uncertainty and the volatility of new markets, how can you make data-driven decisions? For example, how do you make a decision about entering a new market if there's limited market data? Excellent question. I love this. Okay, so yeah. I'll tell you something from my own experience. I was doing a project in Ohio, actually, for a company, and they wanted me to do exactly the same thing. They wanted to enter a new market, and they wanted me to do some analysis about whether I should enter the market. Okay, guess what? This is exactly what I ran into. I went and sat in 3 libraries for a long period of time. I did not get secondary data. But one of the things which I did was, I took their new idea, I picked up 10 to 12 customers, and I ran a quick focus group or a concept test, okay, in which I showed them, and I asked them their willingness to adopt this new product,
That was I essentially had three or four key dependent variables: willingness to adopt, willingness to recommend. So I ran this quick survey. I got the data. I calculated what I call as the top two box scores, which is highly probable and probable. Okay, and I calculated this, and I went and talked to other people about what is a similar top two box scores for other industries, and I found that there was some attraction for this product category.
Mm-hmm.
So, in short, you have to know what kind of market research to do, what kind of data to collect, how to analyze, and how to use that information to make better decisions. Okay, in this particular case, what I would do is run a quick experiment with some few future customers. Okay, find out the willingness to adopt and use that as a frame of decision making.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think a lot of times companies think they have to have huge data sets and tons of data, and invest tons of resources and money to gather and to gather data and pull insights out that are going to be relevant before they enter a market. And that's not necessarily true. I mean, you can do low stakes testing with very limited budget to be able to gather as much data as you possibly can before you pull the trigger on a decision. So
to add to what you said, you're absolutely right. To add to what you said, we used to run a program for entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, and one of the things I used to tell them was, you don't know where you want to enter. Okay, so one of the things you want to do is run a quick experiment. Okay, and this is where Silicon Valley is kind of different from the others. You run quick experiments, you collect data. Okay, and then you might fail, but you might pivot. Okay, so this is where I feel you have to be data centric, and you need to know how to gather data, how to analyze data, and how to make sense of data once you have those findings.
And you have to be iterative.
Yep, you have to be iterative.
Awesome. I think that was the last question that we got from part one. So we have also, as you noticed, for those that are attending today, we're offering a 10% discount off the full certificate program. So if you are interested, the code is right here on the screen. So take note of that. We'll have this screen up for the Q&A for the second part of the webinar as well. But feel free to jot that down. If you have any questions, just shoot us an email and we can answer those for you. So diving right into part two.
Can you just bring that characteristic of successful innovators? I wanted to point out something.
Sure.
So now here, if you look at this, Dennis mentioned to you our program, and I've kind of taken some nuances of this slide into the program. Okay, and if you move on to the next set of slides, so the 4 or 5 things which I feel which could be key success factors for innovation are, you need to understand the whole structures which are relevant in productizing innovation. You need to understand strategies. You need to understand processes, and you need to understand execution. And these are the 4 primary tenets of our certificate program. Okay. Would also like to mention here that these 4 tenets also came across from that extensive research we did from around 100 product managers, product developers, product innovators, and entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. And I actually did a factor analysis to see what people wanted to learn more about. And this kind of resonated exactly with the deck I showed you about successful innovators. So what does it mean in terms of structures? Like if you want to really understand the productizing innovation, you work in a firm, this is a question I get asked from my students. They'll ask me in a very different way, which I love. They'll say, hey, Prof, I want to work in an innovative organization. Okay, how do I know it's innovative? When I interview, what should I find about the organization? Okay, and pretty much this is what I've summarized here. Okay, when you look at structures, you need to understand culture. You need to understand org issues. Okay, are there any structural challenges? How do the key functional groups work? Okay, you can break functional groups into product management, product marketing, program management, project management, engineering, product development, design, could be anything else, right? Now, do they have clear roles? Do they have clear metrics by which they're measured? Okay, and if any organization is actually innovative, there is going to be massive change within the organization. How do they manage change? Are they good at change management? Okay, so these are some of the things which are extremely important, but in my humble opinion, vastly underestimated. Okay, because these can actually either facilitate innovation or absolutely inhibit innovation. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Then comes strategies. I want to point that research again, and a lot of the students I have interviewed and I have surveyed, along with that survey, they say we understand strategy. Okay, we understand what that means, but we really don't know what that means in the context of productizing innovation. Okay, and you need to have a strategic mindset in order to know, like what the question was asked before, what market to enter, what product should I bring for that market, is the product a good fit for that market? At the end of the day, the whole product management game is product market fit. Do we have the right product for the right market? Okay. So what we are also going to emphasize in our program, which is extremely important, is analyzing markets. Okay. We will talk about what data you need. Okay. What kind of data you can collect. What are the metrics you can use in order to, analyze the market, and then product planning. How do you start planning for products? And one of the tools you're going to use here, which is which is becoming more prominent in data analysis, is conjoint analysis. We are also going to talk to you about customer centricity. At the end of the day, you're going to fail in innovation, my friends, if you're not customer centric. Okay, I think it is the most important tenet in marketing right now. So, how do you manage customers? Okay, now love competitors, hate competitors. You cannot ignore competitors. Okay, so competitive intelligence strategies become critically important. We're going to teach you a tool in competitive intelligence. And finally, the world is getting digitized. Okay, so what principles of digital strategy should we be knowledgeable about? So once we go through all these, you will have a much better understanding of what product strategy actually means in the context of innovation. Okay. Now the third principle is processes. Okay, this is a key tip for you, my friends. When you work in an organization or when you go to an innovative organization, you need to know whether they have well-entrenched processes which are geared towards facilitating innovation. Okay, so what could these processes look like? Well, can you ideate? Can you identify the right opportunity to go after? Okay, and can you really brainstorm? Like for example, a lot of these companies nowadays have a special space for brainstorming. That's all good, okay, but that space is going to be useless unless you actually have a well-entrenched process for brainstorming. Okay, how do you evaluate products? God knows how many GMs I have met who have said, "Man, I have 30 ideas and I can only fund 3." Okay, what do I do? And if any of you are in that position, I trust me, I understand your pain. Okay, it's a major problem because you really don't know which ones to, because you're going to really make some people unhappy. And remember, in evaluation, there are 2 mistakes you want to avoid. Mistake number 1, funding the wrong project. Mistake number 2, leaving the right project or letting it go. So you don't want to do those 2 mistakes, and that is crucially important. Okay. Now the third is, do they have good product definition processes? Now, why is that important? Remember, okay, philosophically speaking, what is product definition? It is essentially you holding every discipline accountable towards product development. The better you define the product and hold everyone accountable, the more cohesion you can actually achieve as a leader. Okay, new product design, okay, UI UX, and testing. You know, do you have usability testing people? Do you have QA teams in place? Okay, and are you strong in Agile and DevOps both, because they're becoming more and more important? And the last 2 words are words which we will teach you in great depth, which you should not ever forget. Is design thinking. Okay, so design thinking is a fancy way of essentially making sure you explicitly incorporate empathy towards customers and their viewpoints into your whole decision making. Okay, so these could be the optimal processes. Okay, moving on. Last but not the least is execution. Okay, all strategies, all structures, all processes can be waylaid by bad execution. Okay, so what are some of the aspects of execution you should be aware of, and which we are going to stress? Okay, go to market. When you finally make the product or service available to customers, you have to work with a lot of channels, system integrators, technology partnerships, suppliers, and this whole ecosystem. Okay, and you need to understand what are the strategies and tactics needed to make this ecosystem work. Okay, now pricing becomes crucially important, and this is where you need to understand numbers really, really well, and you need to have an analytical mindset, which I feel is essential. Okay, social networks marketing, digital marketing, okay, becoming critically important because every single person is spending an inordinate amount of time on their cell phones. Okay. Now the whole integrated marketing communications approach, in which you do a little bit of advertising, sales promotions, and you make sure everything is cohesively woven together to have one common integrated message. Okay. And branding, especially those of you who become directors and VPs, you will be involved more in branding than you even realize it now. Okay. And we are going to give you some frameworks in which you can brand. And last but not the least, how do you utilize everything to commercialize or launch or introduce a new product? But it doesn't end at that. How do you critique and evaluate your launch? How to do a post-mortem of your launch? Okay. So these are some of the things which are part of execution. Okay. Moving on, I'm going to give you a sneak peek of an analytical tool we are going to teach you with respect to screening. Okay. I bring forward screening because you don't want to do the alpha error and the beta error, which is killing the right project or passing the wrong project. Okay. So imagine you are a decision making manager and you have, let's say, 10 enterprising product managers and you're the director or the GM, and they all come and present their ideas for you. And everyone is asking you $5 million each, and you have exactly $15 million. Okay. So the ask is $50 million. You have $15 million. Okay. Hope you understand the difference now. What should you do? Okay. This is a big problem which is faced by most people at the senior levels, right? So here are 5 elements which you should keep in mind when you critique a product or screen products. Okay. First, always start, in computer, they always say in hardware, when in doubt, reboot. Okay. I will use the same principle in product management. When in doubt, go to the customer. Okay. Look at the fit with the customer. So does the concept or the idea meet an unmet or not very well met need? Okay. If yes, awesome. However, don't jump too soon because you need to ask yourself the question, is this target market sizable and scalable? Sizable, and there's a difference between sizability and scalability. Sizability is it big now? Scalability is it going to continue to become big in the future? Okay. And then can you actually reach this target market? I joke with my students, if for example, the target market is all Indians above 7 feet, that means you'll have 2 failed basketball players. Okay. So that's not an attainable market, right? You get the drift, folks. Next is, does it fit with your own strategy? Does it fit with your own vision? Is there a strong alignment with your own skills, capabilities, and resources? Okay. Assuming you have the top 2, then you have to ask yourself the question, are competitors offering something similar or can we differentiate? Okay. And if we can differentiate, can we by some form sustain this differentiation? We don't want to be the first to market in which someone comes up with a significantly better product and then leverages our market education. Okay. Moving on, the other 2 things are your technical feasibility. Can we make it with our internal resources? Can be executed? Is there technical fit? Do we have the engineers? Okay. Can we outsource the technology? Okay. Finally, last but not the least, financials. Unless you show financials, and this is where I feel product managers need a lot more education. Okay. What financial tools are appropriate? Usually they do the NPV, and there are some issues with NPV, which I would love to highlight when I teach you folks. Okay. So you need to know multiple different financial indicators in order to make sure that you screen it the best way. Okay. So this is an example of a framework which we teach you in the class. And my primary objective always is you should be able to leave my class and go and implement the tool I taught you immediately after that. So we're going to teach you a tool, and then we're going to make you do it in class so that you have some strong practice. Okay. Now, I'm also a little bit biased towards metrics. Okay. And here is, I'm going to share some research with you. Remember, I told you I'm an academician. So here is a strong survey of 1,000 product managers as to what metrics they use, both output and input, in order to measure innovation. So not surprisingly, revenue growth due to new products and services is really high. Okay. And this is the metric by which you can differentiate good and bad innovators. For good innovators, this revenue growth is more than twice as compared to bad innovators. Okay, customer satisfaction, net promoter score, and all those things is really important. And in terms of input metrics, how many ideas or concepts in the pipeline exist is the one which is used the most. Okay, so this will give you an idea of metrics. I'm not saying these are the best metrics. I'm just saying that a survey showed these are the most popular metrics. So in the class, I'm going to give you my viewpoint of some additional metrics, which you should also keep in mind. My only tip to you guys is do not ever bank on just one metric. You might fall in a landmine. Okay, so you have to have a mix of metrics and make sure that you have some customer-centric metrics. That is the most important thing. Okay, you could bring a lot of new products to the market. You could have a long product pipeline. If customer satisfaction is going to be really low, okay, there is not going to be any revenue growth. Okay, so have a mix of metrics. Okay, so finally, I want to sum it up. This is a question I get asked a lot. How do I excel in productizing innovation? Okay, now you have to do two things actually. You have to be a leader and you have to be a doer. Okay, now why do you have to be a leader? Guess what? I'm going to quote Spider-Man. Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. Here it says, with a product manager, with great responsibility comes no power. Okay, and so you have to lead without having the power. Okay, and now how do you do that? Understand roles and responsibilities and structures really well. Okay, so that you can build the right relationships. Okay, key, really important. The other thing I want to point out is, if you know the market really well, okay, you will be widely respected in the organization. If you are the customer expert within the organization, you get automatic respect. And simultaneously, if you can understand your own technology and your own product really well, the sales people, the marketing people, as well as the engineering people will give you a lot of love. Okay, if you can do these two things well, you have a strong chance of leading without having direct power. Okay, at the same time, you have to be able to be performing optimally as a doer. Okay, you have to get stuff done. For that, you need to understand strategy. Like I said, you need to understand processes really well, and you need to understand tactical implementation. And again, I want to emphasize, this is the whole structure of our certificate of productizing innovation. Okay, so we are going to touch about each and every one of these issues, and it's going to be a mix of people like me and as well as people who come from the industry. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Q&A and Dennis.
Fantastic. Well, I think that highlighted a lot of the content that we have in our certificate program, and I think it gave a lot of color to what you can expect if you were to register for the program. So at this time, we're going to open it back up for questions. So if you have any questions, now's the time again to submit those via the chat function, and we will carve through those here in our last few minutes of the webinar. So question that I have right now, Kumar, is why is it so hard for companies today to stay close enough to their customers to innovate appropriately or to innovate in the right way?
So one of the things I've noticed is silos. Okay, with customers, as a product manager, you need to have acute contact with them to understand. Okay, it can't be only the salespeople, having contact with customers. Okay, and also people here are very technology centered. Okay, so they make a wide investment in technology, and then they have to get the most bang for the buck. So often the technology roadmap kind of drives the product roadmap instead of the market requirements driving the product roadmap. Okay, so when it happens, the focus becomes very internal rather than external. Okay, and also the product. This is a common complaint of all product managers, and I'm sure some of my product management friends who are listening to me will probably empathize with what I'm saying. You are often doing so much of tactical firefighting, you don't have enough bandwidth and time to go do customer visits. Okay, this is the common. I've taught here for close to a decade now, and that is a common complaint I get from people in product management. I don't have the time, going and meeting customers. Okay, so it's a very structural issue also, and as well as technology investments.
You alluded to it earlier, but that, the importance of influence skill as a manager, as a person that's in the product space, it seems that's something that's vital to
Absolutely,
make it work.
absolutely. In the first class I teach in the MBA program, I give them a snapshot of all the skill sets I feel they should have. And the common question I get asked is, "Are you selling us to go into product management, or are you discouraging us?" Okay, but guess what? That's the truth. You have to be strong technically, and you need to have exquisite interpersonal skills. Okay, not only communication, but the ability to get along with people. I make a difference between communication and interpersonal for one reason. You can meet a lot of people who speak very well. You can't stand being around. God knows we have met a lot of them. Okay, you need to be both. You need to be able to communicate, and the problem is you need to communicate different layers of language. You need to be able to communicate with customer support. You need to be able to communicate with sales, with product marketing, with digital marketing, with designers, okay, with engineers, developers. Okay, so you need to be able to speak to people in their language. That's why you need to have a mix of technical skills and business skills.
Fantastic, and I'll tell you that is definitely the way we have structured not just this program, but all of the programs that we offer here in our center. Technical expertise can only get you so far, right? And we know from research that it can also only get you so far up the ladder, and as you're promoted. But it's really the blend of technical skills and soft skill development that really is the trick, not just to make innovation work, but even in the individual aspect for you to be promoted up the organization. So it gets more important the higher you go. So we have a couple more questions that I want to get to. Are there any fundamental differences between a consulting services company and a product company when it comes to their approach toward innovation? Great question.
Great question. Okay, I'll tell you the commonality and I'll tell you the difference. Okay, first of all, there are subtle differences between services innovation and product innovation. Okay, services are more intangible. Okay, so you have to experiment a lot more and a lot quicker, and the human interface becomes really important. Okay, they are important in products, but they're even more important in services. In a consulting firm, okay, it's a lot of strategic and business model innovation in addition to product innovation. Okay, what do I mean by that? Okay, you work with customers. Say, for example, it's from Nikhil, right? So, Nikhil, let's say you are working for McKinsey, okay, and today you're working for a project related to supply chain efficiencies for, let's say, Caterpillar. Okay, in that case, first of all, the common aspect is customer centricity. In consulting, in products, it is customer centricity. So you go meet Caterpillar, you understand what the challenges are, and you bring about the best business model with respect to supply chain to address the needs. Okay, in a product company, it is about building a product or a service or a software. I'm sorry, a product or a software in order to address their needs. Okay, so that's the subtle difference. Otherwise, the principles are going to be pretty similar. Okay, and this, to be very honest, I have a lot of friends and family in consulting. They don't seem to realize, but there is actually more commonality in their approach than that. In fact, that's why Deloitte nowadays has started introducing design thinking and those principles in their whole innovation approach. Okay.
Great. Now, the next question is, in your research, Kumar, have you seen benchmark on the percent of spend for best-in-class innovative companies, either percent of sales or percent of R&D spend earmarked for new products?
To the best of my knowledge, I haven't seen benchmark. I'm going to look today. But what I found out was the percentage of sales and a percentage of sales from new products is more than twice. I think it is 2.5 times for a good versus a bad firm. But the benchmark percentage of spend, we don't have the data yet. I'm going to take a look, but I have not found data on that yet. And this is a question which often gets asked, actually. Okay, and also it depends upon the industry you're operating in. Okay, it's industry specific. So can't give you a specific answer on this, my friend.
And I think that's all the questions that we have from the participants pool. So the last question that I have for you, Kumar, is why is it that people should consider our program as opposed to the others that they have an option for in the market?
Okay, good question. Well, first of all, this program has been designed by people like you for people like you. Okay, and let me elaborate a little bit on that. We did a whole interview, voice of the customer interviews and surveys of people who are working in Silicon Valley in the positions in which either you are working or you want to work for. Okay, and we asked them the questions about what are the kind of knowledge bases they want to learn to succeed in innovation, and this entire data. It actually took me 6 months to collect the data. Okay, and then I brought in some people. I actually used design thinking to design, because I preached this, so I would have been a fraud if I would not have used it. So I was compelled to use it in a good way. And then I brought in people from the industry at very high levels, like the VP CMO levels, to come and look at, because they are the people who hire people like you to look at the content and test the content, which we did. Okay, and we took it to a lot of companies and showed the content. So the content is very much up to date, and it is very aligned to Silicon Valley needs. Okay, it is very Silicon Valley centric. And then the second thing which I did was I had the best person, okay, in terms of knowledge, teach the appropriate content. Okay, so we have 13 people, out of which 8 or 9 are from the industry. Okay, and I asked them what they're most comfortable teaching based on their experience, and we iterated on content, and that's how this whole curriculum was designed. Okay, but the other thing also is it's 2 days a week for 3 days. We want to make sure you have a tan by fire hosing you for 2 days, and then we give you a week to essentially assimilate everything you have taught. Okay, and then come back the following week to apply some more. The last thing I want to highlight is this program is extremely experiential. You will be taught a framework in class, you'll use it in class, and in the end, you're going to also have a capstone project in which you're going to design and make a presentation. And I'm going to offer you multiple opportunities to network, not only with the faculty, but also with 5 people I'm bringing from the industry who are going to listen to your pitches. Okay, so you're going to have the best content taught by the best people, and then you're going to have plenty of networking opportunities, which I think is critically important in any program.
Absolutely. Great. Well, that wraps up all of the Q&A portion for the second half of the webinar, and brings us actually to a close. If there are no last questions, and I don't see that we have any more that's popped up on the chat. So thank you for your time. We'll let you get back to your lunch and finish that up. Don't forget, we have 10% off our productizing innovation program, and the code is MKT100 right here on the screen, so jot that down. If you have any questions at all for Kumar or for anybody on our team here in the Silicon Valley Executive Center, just shoot us an email, and we'll get back with you really soon. Other than that, thank you so much for attending today. You can expect to hear more about other webinars that we'll be offering for this program and for other programs in the near future. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much for your insightful questions also. Really enjoyed.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.